Sisters, we've all turned up the radio to hear Brother Jimmy Lakey, from coast to coast and shore to shore. Now raise your voice. Oh, let us all, Jimmy Lakey, get out of bed. Jimmy Lakey, raise your voice. Jimmy Lakey, Lakey, hey, can't live without it with Jimmy Lakey. Jimmy Lakey.
Hey, that's me, isn't it? Yeah, the one the choir sings about. I told you one day I'd be lit up in lights and the choir would sing my name. And sure enough, it's happening a little bit. And good to have you here. The redheaded stepchild of conservative media, Jimmy Lakey is my name. Glad to have you here. It's hump day, halfway till Friday. It's February the 26th, the year of our Lord, 2025. But rejoice, it's the day the Lord has made. And here we are together, once again, gathering together. It's always fun to kind of watch the numbers. We have a counter in our studio on all the platforms, so we can kind of see who's joining us from where. And so we could do a race voice. Right now, the X page and the YouTube page are leading the way. Oh, the Facebook page, facebook.com. We're on several of those. Just because you look at your page and it says, oh, small, we were on several different platforms at the same time. And so you don't get to see what we call, it's a big word, the aggregate. Everybody know the big word, the aggregate, at this time of the morning? Only this much coffee. I don't know if I can spell it, but we see the aggregate of all the places together, and they're going up as we speak here. It could be a day of big words. We could be using a lot of big words. As a matter of fact, there's my challenge to all of you people who comment from the Peanut Gallery, also known as the chat room. I would like all of you to use big words today. Early this morning, producer Chad threw me off. He said, I have the arduous task, and I didn't know what arduous. I thought that was a Mexican word of the day for a moment. So he said arduous, and I said, whoa, it's going to be one of those days. And then I said aggregate. So all of you have a challenge, whether you're listening on the Media Equalizer page, or you're listening on the Red Wave America Facebook page, or the Jimmy Lakey fan page, or the Jimmy Lakey Twitter feed, or the Rumbles Unleashed page. All these platforms we're on, I can't even keep up with them. Everybody use your big words today. Use your big words, okay? That's all I'm saying. Use your big words. All right, everybody ready for a show? Let's do this thing. I'm ready to rock and roll. It's hump day, halfway till Friday. The Trump-backed budget framework made, Mike says, howdy. That's not a big word, but it does have more than 4 letters in it. So we're going to give you credit for that, Mike. And good morning to you. We appreciate you tuning in. Howdy. Howdy, back to you. The Trump budget cuts survived the House. Now, this is just the framework. This is only a framework. There's not a lot of detail. Basically, what they did is they put the bumper guards up. Like if a bowling alley, they put those bumper rails up and said, this is where our budget will be. And at the last minute, they weren't sure it was going to pass. They had some Republicans holdouts. But Donald Trump got on the telephone. He made a couple of phone calls, and sure enough, they all got on board. And I think Thomas Massey of Kentucky, I should say, was the only Republican holdout. Every Democrat voted no, but it is the framework. Now, there's going to be some coloring now. It's the outline in a color book, and now they have to frame inside those color books. And then, of course, anything they do is going to have to go to the Senate. Now, I did hear today that Speaker of the House Mike Johnson and John Thune, the majority leader in the Senate, they're heading out to the White House today to further conspire, if you will. Byron Donalds from Florida said this morning and yesterday as well that he thinks it's going to take until probably May to get all the lines, I's dotted and T's crossed, but they'll come to a budget that fits within the framework. And this is the framework that they, again, last night was not the budget. This is the framework that Donald Trump had requested when it comes to the budget. So this is going to be some budget cuts, and they're also going to take some of the mandatory spending. They're going to tackle some of that in this framework. So this is going to be a very interesting budget conversation that happens. But again, what passed last night was the budget framework. Now, you and I have been talking on the program. Steve Laffey, who comes up later today, he and I had talked, and we've talked about none of this Doge stuff makes any matter. It doesn't make any difference at all in the long term if you don't put some of this into law and change your budget. And that's what the framework did last night. They passed it from the House. It passed a budget plan. And again, picture the coloring book, and it has all the little outlines, and you have to color in between the lines. That's what they're going to do to color in between the lines. All right. Challenge of the day. I see some of you are accepting that in the chat room. Dennis on the YouTube platform. Good morning to YouTube. We have survived almost 3 weeks without being banned from the YouTube, unleashed from corporate radio. But I kept getting leashed by the tube that starts with a U. And now we're survived there. We've done very well. Let me pat myself on the hind end today just to say congratulations, that a boy. Dennis says, congratulations, Jaime. Except he spelled Jaime a little bit wrong. It's almost like I'm a him or a hymen. I'm not sure, but it's Jaime. We'll practice our Spanish lessons, Dennis. So we'll practice. Linda goes big words. Look at Linda. Oh, she says big words today. Producer Chad says arduous. I said aggregate. And now Linda said salutations, Jimmy. Didn't somebody post? I saw it over there. Somebody says, do capitalized letters count as big words? You know, for you, Jim, they might. For you, we may count that, but I think you're capable. Come on, Jim. You can get at least a 7-letter word in here this morning. Oh, you said capitalize. That's a big word. That's a big word. So we're using big words today. Use your big words out there. Usually capitalized letters just so that you're screaming at somebody. All right, everybody excited about that budget? I mean, they got the framework. This is not the final battle, but this is, again, the plea that I make to you. None of the DOGE stuff matters if they don't start trimming the size of government in the overall budget. Again, how we got to this point, kids, is back in 1997, we stopped passing budgets. There usually were 12 budget packages, and they all had to get passed. And we haven't done that since 1997. So when Barry Hussein Obama says he was going to go line by line through the budget for waste, fraud, and abuse, he didn't, because they never passed all 12. That's where we came up with the phrase omnibus. The omnibus was where, okay, we've got a new budget, we're going to adjust some things, but it's all at one time rather than 12 different resolutions. And that's so everybody had to pass it. They usually put it out about 2 hours before, and everybody, Republicans and Democrats, were guilty of this. They passed these omnibus spending bills, and they usually said, if you don't pass it by midnight, we're going to shut down the government. They also had something called continuing resolutions that we've operated on, omnibus bills and continuing resolutions since 1997, that we haven't gone through the budgeting process as we're supposed to. And so they just continue the same dysfunction, 10% pay raise for everybody to increase or for your budget. And then these embedded agencies that just start spending money on crazy crap rather than what Barry Hussein, isn't it shocking Barry Hussein Obama lied? Liar? I know you're shocked by that. You're shocked that he lied, but I'm not shocked at all, but you probably are, because you're much more Pollyannish about these people. But yeah, he lied about the stuff, lied about it and said, we're going to go line by line. And yet throughout his entire presidency, Barry Hussein Obama never, ever, ever passed the full budget process. It was all omnibus and continuing resolutions. So, and the budget framework for this next year has passed. It barely got through the House, and they say they're going to try to get this out in one big bill in the House. Not sure how the Senate. This is a battle, my friends. This is not going to be easy, because again, we've talked about these congressmen and women, and we've joked about Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders. If they had to wear jackets like NASCAR drivers, they would have patches all over about who's bought and paid for them. Well, it's the same for all members of Congress. We picked on the Democrats, but there's some Republicans that should have their patchwork jacket on as well. And a lot of times it's not just the Pfizer, or it's not just the big pharmas that have their patches on them, or oil and gas, or whatever the case may be. A lot of times it can actually be, I need that extra money in my district to make my district think I'm doing something. And I need you to pass that library. I need you to give me that bridge that goes nowhere. Something that should be done by the state. I need federal dollars doled out in this pork barrel to take out to my district, so that when I campaign in my state or in my district, I can say, oh, look what the Lord has done. Well, actually, look what the congressman has done. And they really haven't done anything except ripped off the American people. So they're on the pathway. This is the first step, and we're going to see how far it goes. All right, there's going to be a cabinet meeting in Washington, D.C. today. I was up early this morning, and I was watching the what do they call that on Fox? I think they call it Fox and Friendliness, or Friendly Fox, or Fox and Friends, something like that. I was watching that show. It was on in the background. I don't really watch it. It's kind of like watching Good Morning America. It's kind of, is there going to be a recipe soon? I'd like to see the recipe section. But I had it on in the background, just listening to the news while I was preparing myself for this streamcast that we do daily. And I heard them say that Elon Musk is going to attend a cabinet meeting today. There's all the cabinets getting together. which is exciting. I mean, we as Americans, we ought to testify and shout to the Lord, hallelujah, that we're actually going to have a cabinet meeting. Remember the last month or so of the Biden administration, they had a cabinet meeting and Joe Biden did not even really go. I mean, he sat there and drooled and pooped himself. And Jill Biden, remember Dr. Jill Biden attended the cabinet meeting? She led the cabinet meeting, if the truth would probably be known, because Joe was busy pooping himself. So Donald Trump's actually going to hold a cabinet meeting with the cabinet officers, and Elon Musk is going to be in attendance. Now, even on the Fox and Friendly show, they were trying to say, oh, this is going to be contentious. It's going to be very contentious because some of these cabinet officers don't like Elon Musk telling them how to cut their agencies. Well, the Fox and Friendly folks, or whoever said that on the network I was watching, I don't know when it was. It was either that show or the following show, Varney. It's a very nice person, said it. Evidently wasn't listening to Caroline Leavitt yesterday at the White House press briefing because she was asked, hey, why did Tulsi Gabbard, why did Kash Patel tell their employees that they do not need to respond to Elon Musk and his demand to have 4 or 5 things that they did the previous week to serve America? Why is it that they don't need to respond? Well, Caroline Leavitt explained this yesterday, and so this is why I don't think they're contentious. She says, our cabinet and DOJ are all on the same page. It's just that some cabinet officials feel that their employees should report to them, and they have their own plan in place for DOJ, and that's fine. We're not divided here as a staff, but the media is trying to really divide this up and say, oh, it's going to be fisticuffs. Donald Trump's going to have to adjudicate and keep everybody in line. They're all going to come after Elon Musk. I don't think so. It was also pointed out to me yesterday. I said, think about that. If you're the FBI and you say every employee of the FBI or NS, National Intelligence, has to report about their duties. Some of them say, I was staking out in front of a drug lord's house. I then staked out for another 5 hours in front of a drug lord's house. I then went and helped the DEI with ICE and did a raid. I mean, there's some things that some of these people on some of these agencies are probably doing that they don't need to have necessarily spelled out one by one. So it made sense to me after hearing that Kash Patel and Tulsi Gabbard may have their own little chain of command, and Caroline Leavitt said it's okay. So anyway, the media today's probably, at least on Fox this morning, they were trying to make it sound as if there was a real divide and Elon was coming in to explain himself to the cabinet. And Caroline Leavitt yesterday set that straight and said that's not the case at all. Not the case at all. It's just not a big deal. All right, good morning to you. The full cabinet's going to get together. That's a big day. Well, remember, I have to look it up. I think it was like a year or so prior to Jill Biden hosting the cabinet meeting that Joe Biden even had a cabinet meeting, and you had these rogue agencies doing very rogue and crazy things. Well, today there's going to be a cabinet meeting, and that's a monumentous day for America. For America. Speaking of rogue agencies, you know the story, Tulsi Gabbard, we're just talking about her. There was evidently, let me just read the story because I'm going to get this wrong, and cover your ears if you're a delicate flower out there, because this is going to get a little dirty, right? It's going to get a little dirty, but this is the Fox News report. President Trump's director of national intelligence is taking action against federal employees within the intelligence community for alleged ties to explicit conversation on an internal agency messaging board. The Department of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard head, DNI, is Director of National Intelligence, put out a directive Tuesday to terminate the employment of and revoke the security clearances of employees who participated in obscene and explicit chat rooms on the NSA's Interlink messaging platform. There were over, according to Jesse Waters Primetime on Tuesday, which would be last night, over 100 people from across the intelligence community contributed to and participated in what is really an egregious violation of trust, like basic rules of standards around professionalism. This was a conversation that would get you in trouble by most HR offices anywhere, even maybe not at the Jimmy Lakey Entertainment Towers, but it'll get you in trouble some places. The chat logs from the NSA's Interlink messaging platform, obtained by researchers from the conservative Manhattan Institute, reportedly shows that employees were talking about their experiences with gender reassignment surgery. They were also talking about artificial genitalia, They were also talking about hormone therapy. They're talking about polyamory, and they also talked about pronoun usage, but they also talked about kinks. Is we're going to get dirty, kids. They talked about kinks that they had, like kinky fetishes that they have, and castration. Male castration, not like the USAID with circumcision. That's different. That's different. I'll explain that later to Delilah. But castration, and then I'm reading some of the things. So is that castration as a kink or castration as a medical procedure? Either way, it's a medical procedure. Anyway, it's some pretty nasty stuff that they were talking about. And Tulsi Gabbard has said, you're out of here. And this is what Tulsi told Fox News host, we've got to take a step back because this is barely scratching the surface. When you see what these people were saying, they were brazen in using the National Security Agency's platform for intended professional use to conduct this really, really horrific behavior. They were brazen in doing this because when was the last time anyone was really held accountable? Certainly not the last 4 years, certainly not in the last 10, maybe the last 20. And we look at some of the biggest violations of Americans' people's trust in the intelligence community. So about 100 people are going to get fired from the NSA because they were talking pretty nasty stuff there on the inter-office. And this is how unsupervised they've been. This is why Elon says, could you send me an email that you're out there paying attention? But they're basically having dirty chats with each other on the interlink, inner chat platform that's open to all the employees, and they're just talking dirty. They're not even saving it for like a text message chain to each other. They're talking dirty on the job while they're logged into the system, and they're supposed to be protecting us with intelligence and things, but instead they're talking pretty nasty out there. So Tulsi Gabbard says they are all going to get fired. Jim says, will Doge ever get to the point of requiring true conflict of interest statements to show family relationships that run across agencies, departments, and elected officials? How do they benefit from those family ties? I don't know if Doge will get to that point, but I'm sure it's coming down the pike. There's going to be a lot more reform. Now, Doge is, I think what's going to happen, I think they're ripping the Band-Aid off, and then they're going to start putting some salve on the wound, and it's going to be painful for a period of time for some agencies and some people. But eventually, and I think, again, there's the corruption is, the infection is so bad. And this is what I think we have to go with the perspective back up to 35,000 feet. If you're Trump and if you're Elon, you have two windows against you. You have a political calendar, which you have finally in a generation, an ability to do the reform like has never been done before, but that political window will not stay open. That political window will not stay open. There'll be an international crisis. There will be popularity. There'll be all sorts of things. Right now, in your honeymoon period, you got to do as much as you can. And so you have a window of maybe the first 100 days, maybe the first 6 months, maybe the first year. But after the first year, you're going to get into midterm elections, and the political window closes for you to do what Donald Trump is doing. So, because again, even if he's finding cuts now, this budget here is going to not happen until May. Get out of the House. So you have a political window you have to operate. So Doge can spend a year finding stuff, but if you lose the House and the Senate and the midterm, it doesn't matter. So you have a very specific political window. And not only do you have a specific political window, you also have, ready for this, you also have an infection that's so great that sometimes you're just going to go, well, we could cut out that one little part, but we're pretty sure it's nasty all around, and you have to do a greater action. So I think there's the reality of all of us would feel more comfortable perhaps on this way if it went this way or this way. But when you have a political window and you have a small window of opportunity to make reforms that are going to be a generational reform, I think it's going to you got to move quick, and you got to just yank off a Band-Aid and see how nasty it is under that, even though it would be maybe easier for some people if it wasn't that way. All right, Elon's emails, some agencies refuse. I explained that. Caroline Levitt said there is no divide, but watch the media today try to hype you up and get you spun up into a frenzy that the cabinet is a civil war inside the Trump administration. Wait until I'm guessing by the evening news, there are going to be reports of that. But Caroline Levitt tried to head that off in the past. Said, no, we're united. There's just some agencies that have their own system of reporting that will be in place. And maybe because of the sensitivity of what some of their employees do, they have the option to not reply. All right. Anybody remember we were told that during the election, that we were going to get the Kennedy assassination stuff declassified. We were also going to get the Epstein list. Maybe we're going to get the P. Diddy list. I'm not sure. Well, there's a story out there that the GOP is, they're the ones squawking right about it. And they're saying, why haven't you released the GOP information yet? There's all this information that we were told is going to be there. And let me read this story to you as reported by journalists out there at the Fox News channel. This is interesting because I agree. We've been drinking so much from water hose, but hey, there's a tabloid part of Jimmy that loves thinking about grassy knoll conspiracy theories. Republicans are mounting pressure now on the Justice Department to advance the release of the classified documents and records as related to the assassination of President John F. Kennedy and the other federal secrets. President Donald Trump signed an executive order in January for agencies to create plans to distribute the files, as well as documents pertaining to the assassination of Senator Robert F. Kennedy and Martin Luther King Jr. and JFK. But Representative Anna Paulina Luna, a Republican from Florida, is leading the House Oversight Committee task force on declassification of secrets and is pushing the Justice Department for answers on, and says, how long are you going to be silent on this? On February the 11th and February the 19th, the House Oversight Committee sent a letter to DOJ asking for status on the Epstein files as well as the JFK files. The Department of Justice has not responded to the Oversight Committee reaching out on X because we can't seem to get a response from the Attorney General, Pam Bondi, after what the status of the documents are. Now Pam Bondi did say last week on Friday, she was asked about this on television, and they asked her, and she said, well, I have the documents, the Epstein list on my desk, and I'm reviewing it. But I like this. I like the Republicans pushing Pam Bondi and saying, hey, there doesn't need to be a lot of review here. We want to know what happened 60-something years ago in the assassination attempt of JFK. Send us the dang documents, and let's get this out there and, again, rip the Band-Aid off. If Elon Musk is allowed to rip the Band-Aid off when it comes to government waste, fraud, and abuse, and it's sometimes you pull out a few hairs when you don't need to pull out a few hairs when you rip out the Band-Aid, but I think it'll all recover nicely. But for some reason, the government is not willing to release those JFK files from 60 years ago. And I say Pam Bondi, hopefully with the pressure now from Congress in her own party, is going to release that. That's what it is fascinating because Trump did sign the executive orders that says they can be released, but Pam Bondi seems to be the one. She said on America Reports on Friday, this is a directive by President Trump. It's sitting on my desk right now. A spokesperson for the Justice Department is not responding to comment. Are you standing by for that? I mean, it's fun to kind of watch all the craziest stuff they're spending in government and all the crazy projects they're jumping into. But isn't it kind of exciting? It's very exciting to think that for just a brief moment, we may be able to salivate and look over the Epstein list, or maybe able to salivate and kind of find the dirty secrets of the corruption that led, or government that led to the assassination of JFK. So, Pam Bondi, if you're listening, let's get those documents out there. Let's show the world what we've been hiding, and I don't know why it's taking so long, but they do have them. They're on the desk, and we'll see how that works out. All right, let's see, what do we got? The Keystone Pipeline, I want to get into that. Oh, did you read this? This is fascinating as well. Now, again, we're only a month into this administration, and we've been bashing, so you got to get stuff into law, which is true. But Congress has been kind of clogged up on this confirmation stuff, and they have a tough time walking and chewing bubble gum at the same time. But they did finally pass the framework of the budget argument last evening, so that's the step in the right direction. They said it would probably be May before they can get this new trimmed down budget out of the House, and this got to go to the Senate, and the government's going to shut down in about May, so they're going to have to figure it out. And again, this is a process that, Elon Musk and Donald Trump may rip the Band-Aid off, but there's a lot of gunk in the pipes of Congress to keep things from flowing very freely. And it's going to be a process. This is where you got to pay attention. You got to keep the pressure on your members of Congress and let them know that you want this budget, this trimmed down budget, this Dojified budget to pass. And you're going to have to keep pressure, because here's where the pressure is going to come. They say it's going to be April or May before it comes out of the House. And then they're going to say they're up against a deadline of a government shutdown, and they still got to get it through the Senate. And with that, they're probably going to have the temptation to pass some kind of a continuing resolution and kick the problems under the curb. See, the problem in Washington, D.C. is not Elon Musk. The problem is Elon Musk has this short political window. Donald Trump has this short political window. And Congress, since 1997, has not done their job of passing a proper budget and through the proper budget protocols. And so this is... And this is what they've done in Congress, is they kind of wait till the last minute. Oh, we'll just pass a continuing resolution and kick it down the road. And they've been doing this since 1997. This is where Speaker Johnson and Majority Leader Thune have to take some leadership in, and they have to get this new budget passed with the right confines of it. So you got a lot of moving parts here, and a lot of the animosity people have is towards Elon Musk, and a lot of the animosity they have is about Doge, and they're all focused on Doge. You've got a couple of things that have come together. The members of Congress have not done their job since 1997. I told a friend last night, if the inspectors general of the departments had been doing their job in overseeing the spending, they would have, Doge would not be necessary either. So you've got a lot of things that have led up to, as I said, this is a giant, infectious, nasty thing under a Band-Aid. And the best way to do it is just rip it off and see what's under there and start scraping crap out. And then over time, once you get the infection out, things will start to rebuild. And I think they will. But you got a time window here, and Congress is going to try to push the time window, and they're going to try to delay this as much as possible. All right, this is the story I want to get to. Kash Patel's finally got in office. And again, we've only been in this a month. And so Pam Bondi, you got to give her some slack. I think her first week in the office was last week. And I'm sure she's got a lot of other things to deal with besides the Kennedy assassination or the Epstein list. But she says it's on her desk. And I'm glad that Congress is pushing her to get that information out there and show the world what's in those files. That's fine. Congress should continue to push and, again, put it back to the top of Pam Bondi's email list and say, Pam, we're waiting on this information. Kash Patel has wasted no time at all. Ready for this? Kash Patel says, hey, we're going to do an investigation of the FBI. And the FBI, we're going to investigate what happened with Operation Honeypot. Anybody remember Operation Honeypot? Operation Honeypot was the secret operation that targeted the Donald Trump campaign. The Federal Bureau of Investigation, with Kash Patel in charge, is going to investigate the 2016 Operation Honeypot, and I think this is fantastic. This is why I like Kash Patel and his appointment there. He's confirmed and he's sworn in, and now he's chosen Dan Bongino, and they are going to start looking in. And they're going to look for 2 female agents who took part in an off-the-book investigation that was launched in 2015, according to the Washington Times. These 2 female agents who were undercover were called honeypot agents. That's a term to refer to undercover operatives. That's usually a woman who feigns sexual or romantic interest and to obtain information from a target. Well, these women have never been identified, but the operation was approved by James Comey back in 2015, and it comes after the outlet, the Washington Times, reported in October 24 that the House Judiciary Committee were looking into a whistleblower's claim that the agency then targeted Trump with this investigation back starting in 2015, as soon as he announced his campaign. And it was described as a fishing expedition launched and approved by James Comey to find, quote, anything they could. It's a protective disclosure. The whistleblower, an FBI agent, claimed the 2 undercover agents had infiltrated Donald Trump's campaign, had been instructed to act as honeypots while traveling with Donald Trump. And they're going to try now to find out who these honeypots were and how they got assigned to infiltrate the Trump campaign, and how complicit was James Comey in all this. And this is an investigation that's going to have to happen. Breitbart is also reporting that that James Comey also did the Operation Crossfire Hurricane campaign, which came up with the Russian dossier that turned out to be fake and discredited. And now they're ordering more documents for that to be declassified. So hold on to your hats, my friend. The truth will set you free. And we're about to get some light shed onto the creep and the criminal, in my estimation, that people like James Comey and their criminal activities that they participated in going back to 2015. And one of the first things they're looking for, because whistleblowers have said, no, James Comey told 2 women to be honeypots and get close to the Trump campaign and to find any dirt possible on him and on the campaign back in 2015. So they were afraid of him. According to these whistleblowers, they were afraid of him and scared of him because he was an outsider. As quickly as, well, the moment he came down the escalator, James Comey's radar went on and said, get him. And they're going to do that. And I can't wait to see James Comey bring his smarmy ass in front of a committee and be investigated and maybe perjure himself. I'm all for it. James, go ahead and see how you handle that one. All right. Again, top news of the day. This is going to be, I'll go to my guest, Steve Laffey. Top news of the day is the budget framework finally got through the House of Representatives last night. This is not a budget. This is the framework. This is the bumper guards. This is the guardrail of which they'll do the budgeting that has to also get through the House. It only passed by 2 votes. There was not much room for margin. Thomas Massey of Kentucky voted against it. But this is like open the coloring book and there's these outlines. And it looks like Mickey Mouse, but there's no color. But if you color the right things, you'll get a Mickey Mouse photo, right? That's a horse or whatever you're in the coloring book. So this was only the budget framework with which they worked that past. And they say they think they can get that budget framework out of the House of Representatives by May. And then it's got to go to the Senate. So this is a process, my friends. This is not going to happen overnight. Unfortunately, legislation, good or bad, doesn't happen overnight. But there's a whole big again, remember what's supposed to happen. And Washington, D.C. has not done this from 1997 forward. Under the days of Willie Jeff Clinton, you're supposed to have the president comes and addresses the joint session of Congress, known as the State of the Union. And traditionally in recent history, up until 1997, the president laid out his kind of vision for the country and what he wanted to prioritize. And as soon as the State of the Union, right around that time, the Congress began working on 12 budget reconciliation stacks. I mean, they had 12 different categories of budgets, and they passed them one by one, debated each of them. But since 1997, that has not happened. You've not had this process go on. And that's kind of what we're trying to play catch up on. And it's going to be fun. But we've ended up since 1997 with the phrase continuing resolution and omnibus spending has been top of the line when it comes to budget. But that's not how it has always happened. It's just happened that way since the days of Willie Jeff Clinton. Hopefully we're moving past that. All right, ladies and gentlemen, good to have you here. Don't forget all the platforms out there. You can watch this program and you can see, comment on the program. I want to bring in just a moment my guest, Steve Laffey. But before I do, if I may, I mentioned this earlier in the program, or yesterday in the program, that we are a little bit behind on our charity donations for our Rivers Promise. And I use this platform graciously to talk about the work we do building Legacy Christian Academy. And we got to the end of the week, to the end of the month, I've shorted my guys in Africa. I said, I'll send you more. I sent them everything that we could, but we're still short on our budget. We're feeding over 10,000 meals a month. I mean, we're doing the Lord's work over there. A lot of kids in school, a lot of the kids that attend our school don't have a sponsor. We're just getting them there. So we need your help, and we rely on it. And January, February are always tough for us. But if you can make a donation, I want you to see this. This is what we're doing. The reason the desks are out on the ground is because we had taken all the desk out around New Year's and pulled all the desk out of our school so that we could deep clean, and I joined with them, and we cleaned windows and we wiped baseboards. We did all of it. But these are real kids. You're really making a difference when you help them, and I hope that you will make a donation today. Again, $30 feeds a kid for two meals a day for a month. $65 also sends them to school, so $65 is the food and the schooling. And if you can help us with 1 child, 2 children, 3 children, 10 children, it would be greatly appreciated. We're behind for the month of February, even with a little bit of response. Not much response yesterday, to be honest, but we had a little bit. We're behind the 8 ball on this, and I'd appreciate your help. Here's the kids singing a song, which is fantastic. It's Legacy Christian Academy. Go ahead.
My God, so great, so strong and so mighty, there's nothing my God cannot do. My God, so great, so strong and so mighty, there's nothing my God cannot do. My God, so great, so strong and so mighty, there's nothing my God cannot do. The mountains are his,
translator can't keep up with what they're saying there. So they're not saying the mountains are dying. The mountains are high.
My God, so great, so strong and so mighty, there's nothing man cannot do.
All right, there you have it. So anyway, we're teaching them about the good Lord, teaching them a Legacy Christian Academy. They get a Christ-based education. And, it's going to be important in times ahead for these kids. I told you the story yesterday that just across the border in Congo, 70 Christians were beheaded by ISIS. And so raising up a kid in good faith and to be strong and understand things is very important. And so anyway, any support you give, riverspromise.org, riverspromise.com, either way, and we'd appreciate it. Again, $30 feeds a kid 2 meals a day for a month. And that's doubled in the last, because of inflation. Global inflation has doubled. And that caused, that's one of our big problems. Global inflation happened on food prices, and it's been a big deal. But $65 also, my friends, can provide the food and a month of education. So just do the math. If you do that for 12 months, that's a whole year of school. You can even pick an individual child off the website or just give the general donation, and we apply that straight to. We don't have full-time, so we have no real paid staff in America. So we're doing this a shoestring, and it's miraculous what I've been able to do. But if you could help us, riverspromise.org. All right, Steve Laffey's waiting patiently in the green room as I continue to yap. Steve Laffey, SteveLaffey.com. Steve Laffey, good morning, sir.
Jimmy, thank you. I mean, that is just a great video. I do have to laugh when you do watch videos where they have all the wrong words below. But the kids are beautiful, and you're just unbelievable. So
yeah, they couldn't. Got it all. My God is so good, so great, and so mighty, big and so strong and so mighty. They got it there, but when they started saying the mountains so high, they thought they said the mountains are dying, and the translator had screwed
the mountains are lying.
The
mountains are dying. I love it. Anyway.
Yeah, but anyway, that was the people said, why are the desks outside of the classroom? Didn't you build a school? I'm like, yeah, we took them out and we did a deep cleaning. New Year's Eve, actually, we did a deep cleaning. I was down on my hands and knees. My son was there. We were wiping windows and mopping floors, and we joined with the people of the community. It was our community service. That's why the desks were outside.
Yeah, and my daughter, Jessica, who is 19, a true 4.0 student at CSU, will delay going to law school. She will join the Peace Corps and will go to Rwanda on May 31st. So she will actually be fairly close to where you are. So I think you will see her at some point.
Yeah, I'm planning a couple of trips over there this year. So I will make sure when I get there, I'll make sure
2 years.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Steve Laffey, good morning to you, sir. Glad to have you here. Let's just dive into the news of the day. I'm sure you've been following some of the things. I'm just pulling up your notes here, some of the things of the day. But let me get your take on this thing. They finally got to passing kind of a budget framework in the House of Representatives. Supposedly it meets the DOGE priorities and trimming the size of government. At least they got the framework done. But it's a hurdle to get man. These members of Congress are slow. They haven't passed a real budget since 1997.
Well, there's only one congressman left, one in the House of Representatives, who would vote against such monstrosities as increasing the debt this year. Tom Massey, if you want to go watch the video, walked in leaning no, walked out and said, I'm a definite no. There's 435 congressmen. The budget debt this year as a percentage of gross domestic product is running at 6.1%. These are war-like numbers. These are World War II numbers when you're funding a war to save the free world, not when the economy is growing at 2 to 3%, as it has been. So Massey walks out and everybody else votes for it. They all vote for it, right? So there's this one guy who says, listen, and this is what I mean. First of all, Massey doesn't know how to convince other people to vote this way. He doesn't go to the steps. He doesn't take people out. He just goes home and lives in his electric home or whatever he does, right? The solar panel home he has. He's an MIT graduate, very libertarian guy. But the deficit's going to increase by $368 billion this year alone if they pass this budget. So talking about the DOGE thing, it doesn't really matter what they do. They could almost do away with Social Security, which is not going to do it. It wouldn't matter that much. They're talking about $100 billion of savings and all this extra spending. And I don't even know what people could possibly be thinking. I'm at the point now where I have no idea what they're going to do when the whole world cracks up. As I told you 2 months ago, everybody in the show, when you first started, or when I said the dollar's going to get weaker. Guess what? The dollar's getting weaker. So right now we're living through a time where the new Secretary of the Treasury spends more time with Ukraine doing deals than he does worried about the budget deficit, I guess, because he's just doing Trump's handiwork. But some of these numbers are just beyond. The 2034 debt to GDP ratio be 116. The CBO is warning not they have to believe the CBO and anything because they don't have any recessions. But these things are going to go out another 10 years, and they're going to estimate no recession as we're about to head into one, it looks like. So they're just going to blow everybody. Listen, they're just going to blow it out until you scream. And you're only going to scream not about the price of eggs. You're only going to scream when the mortgage rates are 10%. And by then, it's just too late, folks. It's just going to be too late.
It's fascinating to watch how all of us, maybe not you, especially because you have a bigger grip on this. Everybody gets caught up in the talking points. When your guys in charge, your guys in the White House, you don't mind budget deficits. When the other guys in the White House, you mind budget deficits. You want to scream about Doge. We support Doge, but we hate Doge. It's like just whatever our party says to us is what most people stand in the peanut galleries are cheering about, and yet it's the same thing you would be critiquing if the other guy were in the White House.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. So, for example, just some of the numbers that came out from Massey himself, extending the 2017 Trump tax cuts, which, as you know, in 2017 on your show, I was against. I want a new tax code. I want a fair tax. I want to capture a lot more money, which is what we need. I don't want to take anybody off the tax rolls. I think everybody should pay something. If they're making 30 grand, they can still pay $300. That's my feeling. But the extending it is $3.5 trillion. Implementing new tax reductions, $1 trillion, increasing spending by $100 million. The debt ceiling is going to go away. Now, who knows what's going to happen when they finally do this? But there has to be. I don't know what the guardrails are. The guardrails are totally off.
Yeah.
And to think that there's only one. By the way, no one from what do they call these Freedom Caucus people? Right, the wrestler from Ohio. None of the Freedom Caucus people are against this, right? There's 38 of them. If Massey's in that group, that's 1 out of 38. You think 38 people would stand up and say, no. And you think by now, when Trump would actually, if someone could get in his ear, might be for this. He might be for a fair tax. He might be for a flat tax. If someone could get to him and say, here's how we raise a lot more money, and people would be happy with this, and we could still have it progressive, in the sense that we do something for the people making 10 or 20 grand, 30 grand, and convince people that it's really a wealth tax for the fair tax. This is why Herman Cain was so smart. But we're not even trying. In other words, the tax code that you all are filling out right now, that really rich people are taking advantage of. Doesn't matter if they're milk producers, doesn't matter where they are, doesn't matter what farm they own, right? Doesn't matter what's going on. That everybody's taking advantage of it. And illegal aliens are still buying bubble gum and stuff in this country and not paying any taxes. We all know this. We could capture a lot of that. And there's no effort. In other words, there's no real work being done. It's the stupidest thing I've ever seen in my life as we head into what is a calamity. Folks, there can't be a world where the United States of America goes for 20 years without a recession. That's not a world we've ever lived in.
Yeah, it's fascinating. You're mentioning we're just continuing, it sounds like, to do patchwork, even though our guys in the White House and we run both chambers of Congress, it's patchwork. And what we're going to do, we're probably going to do is get down to May with the threat of a government shutdown. And screw it, let's just pass a continuing resolution or an omnibus bill. We won't know what's in it. And then we've got some bigger picture. You mentioned fair taxes, reforming the tax code, things like that. There's been talk about that. One of the things that's floating around President Trump's head is let's get rid of the income tax and just go back to the tariff system. But those are big picture ideas, and we're still dinking around with a budget that has to be passed before the government shuts down in May, and nobody's ever dealing with the larger issues here. And
Trump could be the person that really did this. For example, if tariffs wouldn't raise enough money, that's for sure. The income tax takes in about half of what we need, less than half what we need, half of what we get. But if we just changed it and we made a big push on it and we really did away with the IRS effectively, except for, there'd be some people left to see who's not paying for the giant boat they bought or whatever, right? Or like, someone like Sheldon Whitehouse, who used to register a boat in Massachusetts, even though he lived in Rhode Island because he avoided some taxes, stuff like that, right? But we could do it, and then we could collect a lot more money. but we're not even trying. This is like not trying. This is like, for example, it's Trump that was against, and because of Trump, we only have a $10,000 deduction on state income taxes for your federal taxes. Thereby really was a great idea, totally hosing the Democratic states that have these giant property taxes, right? Like Rhode Island, New York State. Well, they're going to do away with that. Why? Because there happens to be some congressmen in some of the states who are Republicans, right? There's some conservative district who want it. But that's going to blow out the budget too. We could go through a litany of these things. For example, not taxing tips. I can't even tell you how I can't even tell you how stupid that is. Who are you really like? Wait, what are you doing? So this is where we are, though. This is how reckless everybody's gotten. And when the articles get written, it's just like Massey appears to be, because if you watch reporters ask Massey questions, they ask him the same question they already asked him. It's all he can do to, and he does better than I would do, to say, "Are you stupid? Did you just not hear me?" The rosiest scenario is there's a $368 billion increase in the deficit this year. But he doesn't say it that way. I would say it that way. Like, you didn't hear me? Because reporters don't really know what a billion is. That's the other problem.
Yeah.
There's no one left that really knows what a billion, let alone a trillion.
I was going to say let alone a trillion. Let's switch gears here. I want to do this other story. I find it fascinating. You sent me a headline that says, of all the things that help students achieve success and economic mobility is a two-parent family, according to a new study. So the proof is out there that the family unit matters, Mr. Laffey. And
this is really about low-income families. So this is how low-income families have the next generation improve and get out of poverty and so forth. Now, it applies probably to everything, but that's the study. And and I have the whole study here, but I'll only go through a little bit with you. But shockingly, the most important thing on a page that I sent you with the variables, not to get into these things, but, just to give you some rough numbers, like the variable having two parents in a low-income family in a community that has more two-income parents, not even the same sex, just parents, right? Two of them, allows kids to have more time to learn how to read. All these things you would think are true. But the family of two is a 0.46 correlation. Now, not to get bored, but just compared to the next number, the community itself is 0.06. Achievement by the parent is 0.16. School friendships are 0.11. The factor of having two parents in the home is 4 to 5 times more important than anything else you can come up with. Now, since the war on poverty in 1964, we destroyed all these families right? We put them in high-rise buildings. We gave them money to be divorced. We did all the things. And I only bring this up because one of my great friends sent it to me yesterday, and I'm staring at it. He's like, Laffey, this is what you've been talking about for 20 years. Like, here's another study. And I'm thinking, like, what are we doing to get these people into the middle class? And along the way, we could reward people for having two parents, right? We could do more things than we do, and we don't really focus on it. We don't really have anybody focused on this data today to say, okay, this was wrong. What we did to families from 1964 to today, we've got to change and promote two parents in a family, right? But it's a striking number. And for people out there, it's not a surprising number to me. It's just striking that it stares you in the face when you go to again, I'm not going to give people the linear regression models and the dependent variables, but I'm just saying by a factor of 4 or 5, it's the most important thing to get people out of poverty. The next important thing would be to have tax rates, again, flat tax, that when people do get out of poverty, they don't face these 100%, 120% marginal tax rates when they go from making 30 to 40 grand. That would be the second thing. If we could do those two things, America would be well on its way to having a better education system, no matter what we did. Because parents pay it. If there's two parents, now, Jimmy, you're a notable exception. Like, we get it. Your kid's an all-star, right? I've been divorced. I get it, right? So these things aren't good for the kids, right? But we overcome it because we work our butts off to do so. In a sense, this is the real thing that saves America in the long term to bring back the middle class. And we aren't focused on that at all. We're focused on tattoos. We're focused on, go to Yahoo and see what they're focused on. They're not focused on this.
You think, and Steve, we'll wrap it up here, but I think you bring up a good, I guess, thought for all of us that President Trump, as you said, is at the he has such a mandate, the popularity, the charisma. He's the right guy that he could probably champion some of these big changes that we're thinking about, rather than encouraging Congress to just kind of rearrange the deck chairs on the Titanic. I hope that maybe we can get in his ear and say, hey, let's not just talk about a budget for this year. Let's reform the tax code. Let's do some big things.
And here's another thing, I criticize Trump about budgets and stuff like that, and he's been married even more than me, let's say, right? So I've been married twice, once for 30 years, and I'm very happily married. And, but he has kids that really like him. That's really good.
Yeah.
And actually behave well. Relatively speaking, right? I don't know much about them myself, but they're not Hunter Biden. No. they're not even Billy Bear. If people who are old enough to remember, brothers and whatever kids, right? They're not like they're fine. So he has a family that kind of hangs around, likes him, does stuff with him, tries to help him. That would be good to promote, because then people say, "Oh, this kid's like him. That's great." Yeah. And so he could do stuff like this, spewing out stuff left and right all day long is really going to hurt him a year from now.
SteveLaffey.com, Laffey, Steve Laffey. Lakey meets Laffey every Wednesday. Steve, God bless you, my friend. I appreciate you, and we'll talk soon. We'll talk again soon. SteveLaffey.com. Always love having Steve on, because he expands your thought processes to not just go with what the party line or what your political party tells you to say. I think that's a very, very good thing. Now, I didn't get a chance. Well, we'll have time to talk about this because there's so much stuff coming out every day. I did not have the time to ask Brother Laffey regarding his thoughts on this deal with Ukraine. That is evidently they're working on it. It has not been signed yet. But I do find this to be quite interesting. And when I heard this over the weekend, I had to do the research and say, is this true? All of Europe, who didn't give much money to that war on Ukraine, all of them put that money out as a loan and said, you're going to repay it one day. The Biden administration just said, let's keep sending money. There's no loan. Therefore, they were careless with it. There's billions of dollars that got lost by Ukraine. They can't find it. I think this is good. We'll have next week maybe to talk about this with Laffey. But I think this is a very good thing that we have. And I want to play with you, if I may. I got to find it here. I have the video. I forgot to put it up here in advance. This is Representative Jeff Crank, any of you down in Colorado Springs way know that he took over the office of Doug Lamborn. This is him talking about the rare earth mineral deal. Says it's actually good for Ukraine. So we didn't do a loan. We just gave them billions of dollars. And Donald Trump says, hey, there's some strategery here, that we're going to get a percentage of all the rare earth minerals and have a stake in Ukraine, and we can use that to pay back all the damage that has been done to American businesses, the Treasury, that we've sent you all this money. And it also, as some people would say, provide a preventative that Russia would say, well, U.S. now has an interest in Ukraine. And so long-term, short-term, it pays us back. Long-term, does it deter Russia from moving on a place that the U.S. has interest in? They're not a NATO member, but they are there. This is Representative Jeff Crank from Colorado on Newsmax talking about why he thinks this is a good deal for the U.S. and a good deal for Ukraine.
Well, thank you, Sean and Emma. Thanks for having me. And yes, I do think it's a good thing. If you think about it, it would be good for Ukraine. It would be something that they can get some value out of for their country and for the rare earth minerals that are there. But it's also something that the United States can get some value out of for our citizens who put a lot of treasure into Ukraine over the last couple of years. And so to me, it seems like a good deal. Ukraine will have to decide for itself. But one other aspect of this is that you would now have U.S. interests in Ukraine, U.S. economic interests in Ukraine, which in and of itself may be a bit of a deterrent to Russia as well.
Yeah. So there you have it, Jeff Crank. Jeff's a good friend of mine. Jeff and I used to do radio together. I did a weekend show on an outlet in Colorado Springs, and he did a weekend show. And so we became good friends. As a matter of fact, my birthday this past year, he had just been elected to Congress, and I was working on some things, trying to navigate some things into D.C., and my phone rings. I was over at my friend Patrick's house and smoking a cigar, and my phone rings. It said Jeff Crank was calling me, and he called me, and I thought he was calling me about the stuff I was working on through D.C., He was just calling to tell me happy birthday, but he had the day wrong. He was one day off. He goes, happy birthday. I hope you had a great birthday. I said, well, my birthday's not till tomorrow. And he was calling to tell me happy birthday. So anyway, Jeff's a friend, and I'm glad he's in Congress. And I kind of tend to think on a very simplistic manner that this is, again, all these people criticizing Trump, they're criticizing Trump, these politicians in D.C. on the agreement with that between Ukraine and Russia and ending this war. Man, we went 3 years. It's been just about 3 years, and thousands and thousands and thousands have died, and nobody ever got them to the table. And so, again, nobody ever came up with a better deal. Nobody ever figured out a better way. And so it's one thing for the peanut galleries in Congress. Now, there's probably for the smart people in the State Department to say, this is just wrong. Well, listen, you've had 3 years to solve the problem and keep people from dying and stop the killing, and you haven't done it. And so if this is going to stop the killing and the needless loss of life for a war that has really entered into a moment of stagnation, then you should have stepped up 3 years ago in your leadership role, and don't be the armchair quarterback now. You've been a member of Congress. You've been in the State Department. You served with Tony Blinken. You've been a commentator on the television blabbing about the war in Ukraine. But did you ever do anything or give an idea that might bring this thing to a conclusion? And the answer is no. And thousands of people have continued to die. And at least it's going to stop the dying here real soon in the next maybe 30 days or so. All right, I got a couple more stories I want to get to this morning, but I want to remind you, patreon.com is a place that you can watch some pretty fun stuff about the show. It's longer, in-depth interviews. I'm recording one here in just a little bit with Shane Jenkins, who is a J6 prisoner. It's going to be a long-form interview about his political persecution, what happened the day of, what happened in prison, all that stuff. We'll talk to Shane Jenkins coming up, and that's going to go out on the Patreon page. These are behind a paywall because I give this to you for free. There's a long-form interviews on various topics that are behind a paywall, and this is going to be one. I released one this week with Dr. Jim West, and I'm going to play this a little bit as well. This is he says that the modern Christian in America, the Christian leadership, he says, is really suffering from Stockholm Syndrome. And he talks about Stockholm Syndrome, in which you start realizing your oppressor and you almost become too friendly with your oppressor. That's kind of, in a nutshell, the Stockholm Syndrome. And he's written a whole book on it. And it's a book that got banned on what people think is an esteemed publication called Christianity Today. They're a lot of never Trumpers over there. Christianity Today proclaims to be the voice of modern evangelicalism, and yet they wouldn't let this book be on there because they did not want any critique to modern evangelical Christianity. And so this is a little snippet. This is behind the paywall. Again, it's only $9.95 a month. And again, we're putting out at least 1-2 interviews on there. They're long form. Some of them are about this word here. They hold this piece of paper up often on the show. Some of these are about the booger cootie virus, that COVID. Some of the interviews talk about the little effer, we call him Dr. Fauci. A lot of interviews that some of them would get us banned on these platforms because they don't like to hear things that might make the World Health Organization unhappy, or the Communist Chinese unhappy. So these are interviews that in some sense would be controversial and would not be able to be aired if they were not behind a paywall. So patreon.com/Jimmy Lakey. And this is a snippet producer Chad has for us. And it's my interview that released about Stockholm Syndrome in modern American and Western Christianity. It's a fascinating study of the Christian culture that we live in now. Roll the tape.
Loving, no doubt. But it's not loving to, if you actually look at Hannah Brown's life and her own autobiography that she wrote, she's a really sad person and tragic person who has a messed up life. By not clearly articulating what the Bible says, we're not being loving. We're helping people to their own destruction. And so this is sort of the ultimate tragedy, that the Christians who think that they're being loving, in fact, are pushing people to destroy themselves. And there's nothing loving about that.
Is the problem that we have, and again, the name of the book is Stockholm Syndrome Christianity. Dr. John G. West is the author. In the world of constant media, barrage of social media, is there more than ever the sense that I just don't want to be seen as intolerant? I just don't want to be seen as a hate monger, because the word and that reputation can spread very quickly with social media, and it's just one soundbite that can get taken out of context. So we remain silent because of fear of just the fast-moving news cycle.
So I do think fear is part of it, but I think many Christians are actually adopting the point of view of the secular elites as if they're right. And so they don't think they're being fearful. They think, well, they're upstanding for something that's right. So when they, don't want to be offensive to someone because they think the truth might be offensive, they tell themselves, well, that's biblical love. But of course, that's not biblical love. In fact, if you look throughout the Bible, whether the prophets or the apostles or Jesus himself, they weren't afraid to offend people if they were having to tell the truth. And so I do think people tell themselves it's about being loving or winsome. And I guess there is a biblical love and biblical winsomeness. I talk about that in the book, but it's not the counterfeit that you're seeing. But I think you put your finger on something else when you mention the media and social.
You get the idea. He's called Stockholm Syndrome Christianity, and it is the story of kind of how the Christian community operates today. Afraid to offend from the pulpit, afraid to, you think of several topics. I mean, you can think of the LGBTQ, IRS community, all the alphabet soups out there. And how many churches just kind of avoid the topic? Many churches will avoid the topic of abortion and say that's a political issue. We don't want to. We're going to show biblical love rather than not being worried about, not picking fights for the unnecessary reason of picking fights. I don't believe in that. But he's right. The apostles, Jesus was killed. He was hung on a cross because he offended the religious elites and the political elites. All of his apostles, all of his disciples were met very harsh realities in life because they were not loved by the elites of their culture. And the whole book is about, have we reached a point in life in which how we reach a point in life in which it's how we reach a point in life in our culture in which we're very concerned about being liked and accepted by the elites as opposed to what does the Bible say. So anyway, it's a fascinating interview, and I would recommend you please go out there and download it. And you can watch it behind this free 7-day subscription, which is very gracious of me to give that to you, right? 7 days. I realized I could open myself up to some shysters out there that just go watch all the interviews and do the 7-day subscription and then cancel before they get charged. You can do that. That's fine. The Lord will watching you, though. He's watching you. Hey, I mean this sincerely. It means a lot when you do subscribe, and I appreciate it. We're going to do some special things on the Patreon page very soon besides just the interviews, some behind-the-scenes chats. But I appreciate you doing it because a lot of you enjoy every morning. You've kind of set your new routine like you did when I was on the terrestrial radio signal. You wake up with Lakey. I was on 4 hours. I think I talk on this show as much as I did on those shows in 4 hours because there we had a lot of commercial breaks and things like that. But we still talk a lot. A lot of preparation goes into this show, and we give it to you absolutely free. And so some of you that are consuming the show, I would encourage you to not just be a consumer, but yeah, consume more, but pay $9.95 a month, and that would be very helpful to the House of Lakey. See the House of Lakey logo and the Lakey Unleashed podcast. The producer Chad and I, this is a labor of love, and we appreciate you participating in it with us. But again, patreon.com/Jimmy Lakey. All right. I want to also give a big thanks to those who advertise with us, and we've got space for plenty of advertising. So feel free to jump in on that. But Sherry Cree, homeswithsherry.com, homeswithsherry.com. She's one of the first ones that signed up with us, and she's a fantastic realtor. And if you've ever read the Ninja Sales Tactics, some of your salespeople and motivational people, you know that there's a certain way that you attack sales and connection, and it's called a Ninja Sales Tactic. Look it up. Sherry does that. She brings just kind of a unique perspective to real estate. She doesn't just want to be your realtor that sells your home and puts a sign up. She wants to be your realtor for life. And she has people that call her up 5-10 years later and say, hey, remember me? I need to sell the house. We're upgrading. We're downgrading. Whatever the case may be. Listen, she wants to have a consultation with you. This is a time of year that a lot of people, as we head towards spring, head towards March, A lot of people start saying, well, the kids are going to be out of school, so it'd be good to move while they're out of school if we're going to change districts. There's a lot of things that happen in the warmer weather. That's when you want to get out and about and go look at open houses and things like all those kind of things. Listen, sit down, a consultation, a review. There's no pressure in this. And you do it via phone or in person, whatever you and Sherry decide. But she's offering this as a complimentary opportunity for you. There is absolutely no obligation. She just wants to help you. Again, Sherry Cree, homeswithsherry.com. If you're in the Fort Collins, if you're in the Denver area, the Boulder, Colorado area, if you're down in Aurora, you're down in Highlands Ranch, wherever you're watching, in that I-25 corridor, I want you to reach out, go to her website, check it out, homeswithsherry.com, homeswithsherry.com. Maybe you're thinking, maybe you're still 6 months away from wanting to sell, but now you want to kind of start getting your I's dotted, T's crossed, and getting your mind around it. I think if I were to sell my house, I got to get my mind around packing all this crap up. And if I'm an empty nester in a very big house, I got to figure out what I'm going to get rid of, how to downsize. I mean, you got some strategery you got to get in your head. Well, on the business end of it, Sherry's going to help you with that strategery. By the way, if you're in a distressed situation, maybe you're wanting to buy some distressed property, maybe you've got yourself in a situation with the economy, whatever. Homeswithsherry.com, homeswithsherry.com for all your real estate needs, homeswithsherry.com. I like how my voice went down there. That was kind of sexy, wasn't it? Homeswithsherry.com. Only a trained professional can do that. All right, a couple more stories and we'll wrap it up here for the day. You ready for this? I like this story a lot. Anybody remember Mark Cuban? Tomorrow, we're going to have Tevi Troy on the program. And Terry has written a book about how throughout American history, the titans of industry have come together and sometimes built formidable relationships with the people with the commander-in-chief. The chiefs of industry meet the commander-in-chief. And we're watching something, I think, it's going to be interesting, the books that are going to one day be written once the Doge effort and Trump's out of office and Elon Musk. There's going to be books written about this very public relationship between Donald Trump and Elon Musk, because a lot of presidents have had these relationships, but they have been much more private about those relationships. Well, Mark Cuban is a big guy, and he was a top Kamala Harris surrogate. Now, if you know the story of Mark Cuban, according to most people, the problem with Cuban is he was a friend of Donald Trump. Everybody was a friend of Donald Trump. As a matter of fact, Mark Cuban to this day still has a house or an apartment in Trump Towers in New York. They were actually neighbors in New York. When Cuban was in New York, he stayed at his place in Trump Towers. Well, according to Trump and others, that when Donald got elected and or was running for president, Mark kept calling him, and he said, "I'm busy right now, dude. I can't talk. I got other things to do." And the rebuffed ego of Mark Cuban got his panties in a bunch, and he became an anti-Trumper, and the rest is history. And then Mark has toyed with running for president. Well, Mark Cuban admitted over the weekend that Democrats can't sell beep, and he used an S word there. And he also admitted that Donald Trump is the master of marketing, saying that he's better than Paris Hilton and Dennis Rodman. Now, I think this is very interesting. Donald Trump is a great salesperson. He's a great marketer. And motioning with his hands, he said, "I'd put him up there with Paris Hilton and Dennis Rodman." Now, I think this is interesting. It's not a direct compliment, but it's Mark Cuban trying to delicately back out rather than say Kamala's a loser and I'm a loser for endorsing her and coming out in my Rachel Maddow glasses and deciding that I'm going to endorse Kamala Harris because I got my feelings hurt by Donald Trump. This is him soft shoeing back to a world of kind of moderate observer. And I don't know if he's going to recover from this. I really think that if Mark Cuban looks back in his potential career, because he was talking about running for president, if Mark Cuban ever looks back on his career, is there one moment that cost me credibility, whether you ran for office or not? Is there one moment that cost you credibility? I think he's going to look back, and that's going to be the moment that cost him all credibility, and he can't be taken seriously of a man with sound judgment. That you cannot like Trump, but to come out and pretend and lie to people about what a great leader that Kamala is going to be, it shows that you're not a man of serious and sound judgment. It's kind of like if the governor of Maine ever wants to ever wants to have higher aspirations. Her political career is done, even in Maine, because she's decided to die on the hill of having boys with biological males, if you will, in girls' sports. And Donald Trump called her out, and her political career and any ascension to the top and any credibility of being a sound and a wonderful woman of judgment, only career she would have is maybe appearing on the Rachel Maddow show on MSNBC. That's it. And there's these moments in time that I think that Mark Cuban is delicately trying to moderate himself and say, oh, yeah, Donald Trump's a great salesman. He's right up there. He's a great marketer. And remember, Cuban's the guy that said he doesn't like to surround himself with smart or intelligent women. And then Cuban was already back on his heels as all the smart and intelligent women attacked Mark Cuban and said, you're an absolute jackass. And he is an absolute jackass, evidently. And I think this is Mark Cuban trying to have a reform of his mindset, trying to reform himself and trying to get back into moderate viewpoint. But I think if you came out and adamantly, based on information, adamantly endorsed Kamala Harris, and you also didn't speak out against the fraud that they ran in a primary, and then they kicked Joe Biden out in a coup, and you just kind of covered up the elder abuse that they did to old demented poopy pants Joe, and you came out and read the talking points about Kamala Harris, you are not a person of serious and sound judgment, period, the end. If you're a member of the Democrat Party, just a voter, you're not a billionaire like Mark Cuban, and you did not speak out against your party and have pause about them just sticking Kamala Harris up there and she's never won a primary or caucus, then you're not a serious person when it comes to politics. You're a product of their propaganda, and you're a cult follower. That's what you are. I hate to break the news to you, you are a cult follower. And Mark Cuban was and I don't think he was a huge Kamala fan. I think he was just in the cult of I hate Trump, and Trump's accomplished more than me, and nana boo boo, I'm going to get you. And he hitched his wagon to the wrong horse, and Mark Cuban's trying to recover. All right, lots of things we're not going to get to today, but it's going to be watch the media. I've warned you about this. Watch the media. They're going to be trying to tell you that Elon Musk is going to show up at the cabinet meeting, and there's going to be fights because the cabinet doesn't want Elon Musk bossing him around. Well, Caroline Levitt yesterday pointed out that they have permission. A lot of these cabinet officers, CIA, Tulsi Gabbard in the intelligence, and I'm in FBI, Kash Patel, they've told their people, hey, you don't have to respond to Elon because some of their stuff is delicate and sensitive, and just report to us. We'll follow it out. So they have permission to do that. But the media, because we live in a 24-hour news cycle, they try to get a propaganda narrative going. And right now the buzzword is chaos. Donald Trump's bringing chaos. That's the new word the media has been using. And so they're going to take the chaos narrative today and say that the cabinet doesn't like the chaos of Elon Musk, when it has already been explained that some of these department heads are told, yeah, your people don't have to do the word as you don't have to do the. You just don't have to do the email, but we'll take care of it internally. All right, let me read some more comments before we go to the meme roulette show. Jim's on fire this morning. He says we're going to crush the Department of Defense budget where we have to pay replacement value at the current cost. Yeah, all those weapons we got over there. Jim also says you were truly unleashed. You did not soften and use jackwagon. Way to go. Oh, I said jackass, I think, didn't I? I'm unleashed. Crazy like that. I'm crazy. All right, ladies and gentlemen. Rich says this, I think, in response to the Stockholm Syndrome Christianity. He says, I love my kids, but I still correct them if they need correction. It's really an interesting study, and I like doing interviews like that with Dr. Jim West on the Patreon page, patreon.com/Jimmy Lakey fan page, because as a Christian, and I wouldn't say I'm a Christian leader. Hell, I'm not even a talk show leader. I'm the redheaded stepchild of conservative media. But I have to say, it is interesting to do a reflection and say, have I become that person? Have I started relating more to my captors than I do to my creator? It's an interesting interview. I'd encourage you to go watch it. And it's a challenge, especially some of you maybe send it to your pastors, not in a judgmental way, but it's sometimes good to have a little bit of, I don't like a lot of navel gazing, but just to have a moment of reflection, and maybe at the end of it, have a little word of prayer and say, Lord, I've kind of been guilty of that. And anyway, go watch that interview. It's behind the paywall, but I think you will find find it valuable, and I'd appreciate you doing it. Patreon.com/Jimmy Lakey. All right, we do something called Meme Roulette. Arloa says you got to love your kids enough to correct them. Absolutely. And we're set on we're going to get biblical here. We're on the planet, and what were we called by Jesus? We're salt and light. You ever get salt in a wound and an infection? It's going to sting a little bit, right? But it's also going to sanitize and clean that thing up. Light is going to also, what does light do? It exposes things and stuff. And we're salt and light. So, yeah, that's where he's getting with Stockholm Syndrome Christianity. Behind the paywall, patreon.com/Jimmy Lakey fan page is you're going to see that we have become patreon.com/Jimmy Lakey. We have become, we need to be salt and light and realize that some of the properties of salt and light aren't always the most comfortable, but we are called to be salt and light. That's what he's getting at Stockholm Syndrome. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we do this thing called Meme Roulette, where producer Chad has a stack of memes, and he puts them up on the screen, and we steal them from around the globe. We're shameless like that, and I spin this little fake wheel because we're too cheap to buy something else and don't have enough money for it. But we say, here we go, first round. Round and round the world we go to steal the memes from where we don't know. Here we go. What's our first meme? Oh, it's from the Babylon Bee. Trump was fired for forgetting to reply to Elon's email. Yep. Oops. Dang it. Hey, you're out of here. You're fired. All right, here we go. Let's steal some more. Round and round the world we go. We steal the memes from where we don't know. Oh, it's confirmed. Heaven will have a Buc-ee's. This is true. Now, God confirms that heavens will have a Buc-ee's. Now, some of you that aren't in the world of Buc-ee's, or maybe you're in a state that doesn't have a Buc-ee's, never been to a Buc-ee's, I'm sorry. You should find a Buc-ee's. There's a Buc-ee's not far from where I live now, and back in the old radio days, if I ever went to the station, I had to drive right past it, but now I haven't been up there, and it's probably a good thing because their little brisket sandwich was addicting, and the great prices on beef jerky. But Buc-ee's, if you're ever in a state, go see a Buc-ee's, because God has confirmed, hallelujah, that there's going to be a Buc-ee's in heaven. And for that, if some of you have been resisting Jesus your whole life, I want you to stretch your hands toward the television monitor right now. We're going to have an altar call like Billy Graham, because some of you now want to go to heaven because you found out there's going to be a Buc-ee's there. I'm jesting. That is not good doctrine. Don't listen to me. Here we go. Round and round the world we go. Where we land on the globe and steal from, no one knows. Oh, I didn't get to this story today. This is true. Hooters is filing bankruptcy. Babylon Bee here, we steal the meme, says it's a heavy blow to creepy middle-aged weirdos. I find offense in that. I've actually only been to a Hooters 2 or 3 times in my life. I'll never forget the first time I had a meeting with a creepy middle-aged weirdo. It was one of my friend's dads. I was in my early 20s, and he was trying to get me in some multi-level marketing thing. I don't know for what he was trying to get me in. And he said, let's meet at Hooters. And I met my friend's dad at Hooters, and I thought it was very strange. I don't remember what was said in the meeting the whole time. Just don't remember. I think it's sad. Are they going to restructure? Is this chapter 11 or chapter 7? I don't know, but they're preparing for bankruptcy. And as they say on the farm, it's sad to see Hooters go tits up. Very sad. I hope that. Okay, here we go. I can't believe I said that. I'm unleashed from the bonds of corporate. Here we go. Round and around the world we go. We steal the memes from where we don't know. Here we go. I bet he's thinking about other women. The federal employee says, what the hell am I going to write for those 5 bullet points? I love those memes right there. Those are funny. I bet he's thinking about other women. Now he's thinking about his 5 bullet points in the email. Round and around the world we go. We steal the memes from where we don't know. Where do we steal it? Oh, this is one of the best ones. When your USAID slush fund it gets doged and you can't afford paid protesters. This is an actual photo of Adam Schiff and a bunch of Dick Durbin, a bunch of idiots in Washington on the day they confirmed Kash Patel, standing in front of the FBI building and said, block Kash Patel. They couldn't get an audience. And that's actually, there's more truth to that meme than you realize. And a lot of times what you see, these crowds and protesters out there, they were funded. They were paid. It's called AstroTurf. It wasn't grassroots protest. It was AstroTurf, and that's what USAID. All right, I think we got a couple of more. Here we go. Rich thinks that's funny as well. Round and around the world we go. We steal the memes from where we don't know. Oh, here we go. El Guapo speaks. We give credit to El Guapo for this one. Return the survey or get fired. Quandary happening in the walls of Washington, D.C. All right, a couple more here I think we have. Let's see if we've exhausted the meme machine. Round and around the world we go. A foolish man shares his problem. A wise man shares his memes. You're welcome. I'm a wise man. Should we do another one? Let's try one more time. See if we I don't know how many memes we have here. It's meme roulette. I don't know. Around the world we go. Where we steal the memes from. Ladies and gentlemen, we have pooped out the... It's like, Hooters bankruptcy, orange shorts not covering the DEI's hires jewels. I got to process that and think that through. Hooters. I just don't know. Is it a restructuring or is it a total close of the doors? All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's been a pleasure. I want to remind you, and I've asked you this graciously, and I ask you this humbly. If you'd like to subscribe to our Patreon page, we'd love for you to do so. If you'd like to be like Layman Lewis, Corey Clinton, 1 Hour Heating and Air Conditioning, homeswithsherry.com, and you want to be a long-term friend and supporter of the program, I'd love for you to do so. Sherry, thank you very much. Go advertise with us. It's info@jimmylakey.com. Again, we're not pressuring you to do anything, but I'd love to talk about your business. I'd love to talk with you on the program. As a matter of fact, the next couple of days, I'm going to have Sherry come on the program with us and to talk about the real estate market. But again, Joshua Lewis has been on the program before. I'd love to get you exposed to the audience, and it'd be my pleasure to do so. info@jimmylakey.com. Everybody go subscribe. That Stockholm Syndrome Christianity book is up there. The interview with John West is on the page as well. And I again ask you, as I had the last 2 days, graciously, we're in the final couple of days, 48 hours left in the month, and our charity is a little bit behind. And January, February are always tough months for us, and this is a big one for us. So if you could help us out, riverspromise.org, $30 feeds a kid for 30 days, 2 meals a day, and $65 also sends them to school. So $65 covers the food and the education. If you can give $6, do that. If you can get $2, do that. Some of you can do $650. Somebody asked me yesterday, how much are we, I think it was producer Chad, how much are we behind on this thing? And can I just throw a number out? At last look, we, for the month of February, because some of you may just want to go do it right now. I'm going to be honest. We're about $3,000, 3 bills. We're about $3,000 short of what we want to do for food and the kids over there. About $3,000. So I just throw that out there. So if you want to do $6, do $6. But if you maybe say, well, I do $3,000. I haven't donated to charity in a while. Do that. Riverspromise.org. Ladies and gentlemen, we got to wrap this puppy up and land this ship. And I'm going to be recording here in just a few minutes with somebody behind the paywall that you're going to want to subscribe there. And donate at Rivers Promise, but you can subscribe at patreon.com/Jimmy Lakey. I'm about to interview a prisoner of the J6, January the 6th tyrants. I'm going to interview him coming up. It's going behind the paywall real soon. Until we meet again, I mean this, donate riverspromise.org. Everybody, go to work. Go to work. Everybody, get back to work. Nothing to see here. God bless you. God bless America. I am Jimmy Lakey. Peace. I'm out of here.